Hey everybody, Nate Lee here, and I'm going to show you how to practice double stops so you can learn to play them in tune, and my favorite trick for playing in tune when you're actually performing or playing in a jam session, how to set yourself up for success and what to do if things aren't going quite right. So first we're going to talk about how to practice playing double stops in tune. This is really important because if you don't practice this correctly, you can't expect your double stops to come out good when you're performing. If you're playing fast, then you can get away with a lot, but especially as things slow down, it becomes very obvious if you haven't practiced your double stops. So let's get started with what you need to know. One quick note though, I've got a favor to ask all of you fiddlers. I have a class coming out for mandolin players called Be a Mandolin Kickoff Hero, and you may have experienced this in jams before where nobody in the jam knows how to kick off songs, and maybe you're the only one and you would really like someone else to kick off some songs. Well, please share my class with your mandolin picking friends, and also let me know if you would like me to do something like this for fiddle in the future. But one small favor, if you don't mind, just share it with your friends. I've got a link down below. You can share the link with them, and that would be awesome. Thank you. All right, so playing double stops in tune. Here's what you need to know. First, you need to do what I just did. You need to find reference notes. Now, what I just did was I used an open string to find a reference note. I played an open D, and then I slid into a G note, which is one of the notes that's in the double stop I wanted to use. So I used a reference to know if I was going to be in tune or not. Now, if you can do that, great. Use the nearest open string that is in the key you're in, preferably something that is in the same chord that you're in, and it really helps, because if you don't have a reference note, how can you make something in tune when you have nothing to reference to do that? It's just too much to ask of yourself to play things in tune if you don't know what you're trying to be in tune to. So you can use any note that is in the chord. You can even use any note that's in the key. It's just a little harder to do it that way. You can also find an open string that's the same note name as the one you're trying to play in tune. So you could, if you wanted to play this G note here, in tune, you could look for an open string that matches it. Here we have open G. So you can listen to that note and then wiggle around until you get it in tune. Now it helps a lot to slide. Slide from low to high, sliding into the note. It's a lot easier to hear if the note's in tune if you slide your way there. A nice fluid slide allows you to move in small amounts too, or to have more accurate increments in your movements, because when a finger is just down and we try to kind of scoot it, it has a tendency to scoot way too far. But when we smoothly slide into something, we're already in motion. It's easier to keep that motion going and then to put on the brakes when you get to the right place. So do this over and over and over. Now, before we get farther into that, let's talk about what to do if that open string reference is not working for you. So you're like, yeah, this is great, Nate, but when I hear an open D, I can't get this note in tune. Or even I play my open G, and then I still can't get this note in tune. Either you can't remember what the pitch sounded like, or it's just not going well. It's landing out of tune every time. This is what you need to do. You need to start using a drone. So I like to use the cello drones that are on YouTube. So you just search, in this case, I want a G note. So I'm going to search cello drone G. And this cool thing comes up. It's 6 minutes of a drone with a nice, pleasant cello note. So what we're doing here is we're taking a skill that's not there yet, and we're breaking it down. Anytime you cannot do the thing you want to do, you need to look at what are the steps in between you and that thing you want to do. There's always steps between those 2 points. And the more they are baby steps, the faster you're going to get good. So this is one of the more tiny little baby steps you can take. And I use this method to practice all the time. And all of my students do. At least you're supposed to. Out there, you're supposed to be doing this. But I believe all my students do. If not all, then most. And it really gets results. So what you do is you turn on the drone. And first listen. You've got to listen to the reference if you want to be able to match it. And then you play the note and slide into it like I mentioned. Once you find a note that's good, freeze in place and then remove the violin from your shoulder without moving your finger. And then look from over here and get a good idea of where your finger really is. Because the fiddle is this far in front of us, there's depth perception problems, and we can't accurately envision where our fingers are supposed to go. In fact, most people are pretty surprised to find out that the first finger position is not down here like they thought it was, that it's way up here, not down here. And that's just a depth perception thing. So once you find that note in tune, you need to then give yourself an idea of what are you even going for. One of the main causes of playing double stops out of tune, and I talked about this some in my recent video, Getting Past the Hard Part, but one of the main reasons that people play out of tune is that they have a misunderstanding of where the note actually lives. They think it's in one place, so they're going for that, and it's really in another place. So when they go for where they think it is, they're wrong every time because they don't understand where it is. You think you're doing the right thing, but you just aren't operating on good information. So after you look at it, you do it again. You do it over and over and over. So it would look something like this. Always sliding into the note. I like to use an open string first, but you don't have to. You could just do this. And just do it over and over. We're practicing landing in the right place. Every now and then, when you get it real good and in tune, just sit there and enjoy it. Pay attention to what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like. Then you do it again. Now, if you miss, like I landed a little flat there, my finger just stopped moving, that's all right. Just stop and correct it. Now, avoid using a lot of vibrato. Like I started to break into some vibrato there. Vibrato doesn't help us know if we're really in tune or not. So avoid vibrato. You can always add that vibrato in. Now, let's talk about slide versus roll. There's two ways that you can fix an out of tune double stop. So starting to think a little bit about what are you going to do when you're playing a song and it doesn't go right. Well, this is something you can practice in your practice time with the slide versus the roll. If you land somewhere and it's really far from where you need to be, slide there. But let's say you're so close and you just need to change it a little bit. This is where we use the roll. You just roll your finger a little bit. Get the others out of the way. One way or another, you just roll it a little bit. Just like that. Now, this isn't how you want to play all the time. You don't want to have to be rolling. You want to land in tune in the first place, but sometimes you're not going to. And that's where the roll is great. Even in a more sterile practice environment, when you practice that roll, even though it's not what we would like to land every time, you're practicing fixing a double stop when something goes wrong, because they are going to go wrong when you're performing. They're just going to. It happens to everybody. Some people, you may think, oh, it could never happen to them. It does. It's just happening to them to a smaller degree than maybe what you are detecting, but it is happening to everybody. So that's the slide versus the roll for getting a note in tune. Now, we haven't played double stops really yet. We're practicing getting a single note in tune. But in order to practice double stops effectively, you've got to get the first note in tune. We can't expect to put down two notes in tune if one of them isn't landing. So the next step is you make sure you can play the second note in your double stop in tune by itself. So the one I've been using as an example is a G note, that's a 3 on the D string, and a B note, that's a 2 on the, or a 1 on the A string. So your next step is you set your cello drone to B, and you practice that. Now, as you get better at this, you can start to set your cello drone for different notes than the one you're playing. Like I could turn this G drone back on and practice a B because they're notes that sound good together. In fact, you can practice whole songs this way. And practice your double stops that way. All right, so once you've established that you can play the single notes in tune, this is a prerequisite to playing the double stop. You cannot play the double stop in tune if you can't play single notes in tune. Well, then your next step is to use this technique. You start by getting one of the notes in tune, and you can do this with or without the drone. You start with one note, get it in tune, freeze in place. Now play both notes and slide into the new note that you're adding. So I'm not moving this first note at all. At least I'm trying not to. And you slide into the other one. The moment that it's in tune, you'll know it because it makes this sound that's just this big, vibrating, resonant sound. It just sounds like it's going, whoa! That's when you know it's in tune. Out of tune double stops fall kind of flat. Sonically, tonally, they're just not good. Not good, but the good ones, when you do finally land it in tune, ring out so nicely. So you can practice this with the drone. And just like before, once you get a double stop in tune, remove the violin from your shoulder, freeze in place with your fingers, and look right here. And see, where are they really? How close together are they? How close to the pegs are they? How close to the upper bout of your fiddle are they? This is really important stuff to look at. What does your finger position look like? Now, we're not getting way into technique right now, but your finger and hand position technique is very important for this, and you can practice some of these things together as well. All right, so that's how you learn to play them in tune. You do this one after another. Then you start to practice them in context of a tune. Now, it's really important for you to practice ones that you're going to use. Don't go and try to practice double stops in 12 keys after you watch this video. In fact, it's usually not going to be productive for you to practice double stops in 12 keys for most people ever. Because if your goals are to jam in bluegrass and related styles, F sharp, C sharp, those keys just aren't going to come up. If they do, it's very, very rare. So don't spend your time learning to play in tune in F sharp if you're probably never going to play in F sharp. If you start playing with a band that the singer sings in F sharp all the time, then practice those scales. But for busy people, my students, most of the people that watch this channel, you've got other things going on. You've got a job, you've got kids, you've got grandkids, a dog, whatever it is. You need to use your practice time wisely. So make sure you approach this by practicing double stops you know you're going to use. So you work this into your tunes, and then you know the tune. So what do you do now? Now that you know tunes, what do you do if it's not going right when you perform it? Well, the first thing you need to do is before every song you play, you need to find where the notes are. Pay attention next time you're watching a performance from a really good fiddler. What you're going to see them do almost every time is before they start, they're going to do something like this. They're going to establish where the notes are. I call this finding the light switch. So you go to somebody's house, you're like, hey, where's the bathroom? They're like, it's over there. So you walk into the bathroom, you close the door behind you, and it's very dark. And you're like, oh no. Where's the light switch? I think I could have a promising career as a mime. What do you think? Oh, okay, maybe miming isn't for me. So you need to find it first. If you were to open that bathroom door and look at where the light switch is and spot it, it could be across the room and you're probably still going to find it. You could close that door, it's pitch black, and you reach for the light switch. You need to find the light switch before you play things. Now, what about once you start the song, if you're not confident about your double stops or you just want to set yourself up for the most success possible? Well, then what you do is, when possible, play one of the notes first. So I've been playing this part from Methodist Preacher. Ooh, I bumped my peg while I was doing that. Hold that thought. I'll tune and get right back to you. All right, so I'm back. I bumped one of my pegs apparently at some point, and these are geared pegs, but if you bump them, they move the same as any other peg would, maybe even more because they are easy to move compared to most friction pegs. So anyway, where we were, as I was saying, set yourself up with one of the notes first, if possible. So I was playing some Methodist Preacher. This part starts out, at least the way I was playing it, by setting up one of the notes. So you get this chance to get one note in tune and use all your brain budget toward that, not thinking about two notes at once. Well, now that I've set it up, I found the light switch on that note. Now, in the case of this song, I can actually just leave it down and then focus on getting the other note in tune. Now, once I've found the light switch, it's a lot easier to land it in tune after that. So those are the best things you can do. Those are the best things I do in order to play in tune more often. You're not going to play in tune all the time. I don't play in tune all the time, but it's something that we can all work on playing more in tune. And the things that help a lot are use your drone, practice getting individual notes in tune, practice getting double stops in tune with the drone. Look at what your fingers look like, feel like, and what it sounds like when your fingers are in different positions. Then find the light switch. Set yourself up for success before you play. And then when possible, get one note in tune first as you play a song so that you can then sneak in with the other one and have a nice in-tune double stop. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I've got one more tip for you, actually. But before we do that, make sure to subscribe to this channel. It's an easy, free way to help the channel. And also click that like button for the YouTube algorithm. You can also come and take some lessons from me at playnately.com. We'll do some live online lessons. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure to follow this page, like, and share. And all you fiddlers, do me a favor and share Be a Mandolin Kickoff Hero with your mandolin playing friends. It starts Monday, May 29th, and it's going to be running for 3 Mondays in a row. All right, now for that last tip that I promised you. If you just can't seem to hear pitches in tune, then you need the app called InTune. And there is something else called InTune that's like with Microsoft or something like that. It's not the same thing. So the InTune is that little one. Kind of reminds me of like the Warner Brothers logo or something. These are also some other apps, some of which I use. That Drum Genius is pretty great. Scale Master is cool, although I use cello drones more. Pro Metronome is good. I don't really ever use the rest, but that's some cool stuff. So InTune, the way it works is it quizzes you. It plays a note, and you can choose different instruments. I'm going to just choose pure tone. So it plays you a note and then another note, and then you have to swipe up or down to tell it if the second note was higher or lower. Why is it not doing it right now? Okay, well, it usually works. But anyway, as you get them right, it starts to make them more difficult. And you can learn to hear notes in tune better. If you're somewhat tune deaf, this is something that'll help you a lot. If you're very good with pitch, this is something that will also help you a lot because it gets harder and harder. It'll help you reach higher and higher levels. All right, everybody. Long video. Those of you who watched to the end, wow, great. Thank you for watching. Put down in the comments if you watched it to the end. And let's see how many people did. All right, everybody, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.